So one of the data structures which we haven't discussed up until now is a factor, which is a specific kind of data structure or a specific kind of vector which helps us organize information in different categories. Um, and it's useful in specific scenarios, especially when you're dealing with certain kind of categories. So let's say we've got 4 employees who are working in an organization, and these 4 employees are working in different departments of the organization. So we can say that those different departments are categories. And let's say Alice and Bob are working in design department, whereas John and Mike are working in production department. So to save the information, we can create a character vector, and we can see the output of this character vector. So let me just execute just to show you that this is an approach which we can take to save the information. So we can see that we have a character vector, design for Alice and Bob, and production for John and Mike. So this is one of the ways in which we can save the information, but it's not a particularly interesting approach because we are definitely dealing with categories, and as we earlier said that factors can help us organizing information. So we can use factors, and the advantage of using factors is that it will internally convert these string values into numerical values or integer values. And especially when you have to filter information from a given vector or data structure, string comparison can be an expensive operation. And if factors help us convert these strings into some kind of numerical values, then it will be quite useful, especially when you want to retrieve certain information or if you want to filter out certain information, because integer comparison is rather a less expensive way of filtering out information. We can indeed use integer values instead of these string values. So we can use 1 for design and 2 for production, and we can manage the information in that way as well. But the downside of that approach would be that 1 and 2 are not self-describing. So it's better to use factors which are not only self-describing but also help us organizing values, especially these character values, into integer values which can be useful later on when we want to filter out information. So in order to create a factor, we can pass in the character vector to a factor function, and the factor function will basically transform this character vector into a categorical vector where each element or each value of the vector will be a categorical value rather than a string value. So if I just execute the statement, what I'll see is that it has created a factor. Now if I want to see the content of this factor, I'll execute this next line, employee departments, and what I'll see that we have indeed a vector consisting of 4 values. The first 2 values are design, and then the next 2 values are production. It is also telling us that it has now created 2 categories. One is design and one is production, and it has basically converted the vector into the categorical values. And you can also see that these are not enclosed in double quotes, which also shows that these are not character values, rather these are categorical values, and the set of those categorical values are defined below. Now if I want to see the structure of this categorical of this factor, I can run this statement, and what I can see is that internally the vector basically consists of the four values 1 1 and 2 2. So internally these are numbers which have been used by our framework, but from the point of view of description and readability, it has given these names to these values so that it becomes more descriptive, and it is also telling us that these are the two levels or categories: design and production. So that's the way R handles these factors. And uh, one more thing which I would like to show you before concluding this video is that sometimes you want an extra category. So right now you have all your employees working within these two departments, but there may be a possibility that later on someone would be working for another department, let's say a human resource department. So how can you handle that kind of situation? So basically you want to have a vector of the same values, but in terms of your categories you want to add an extra category. And also if you want to uh, change these numbers. So for example, right now the design has been given the value 1 and production has been given the value 2, merely on the basis of the alphabetical order, because because design starts from D and production starts from P. Therefore, alphabetical, in terms of alphabetical order, design has been given the number 1 and production has been given the number 2. So how can you change these kind of details? And for that you can again use this factor function providing the character vector, but you can also as a second argument you can also pass in this information about levels, and you can provide all the potential categories as a vector. So you can say production, design, and HR. So it will create a factor of these two values, but the categories, all the categories can be defined over here, and you can also create an order in which you want to have these categorical values set up. So when you create a factor in this manner, production will be assigned a value of 1, design will be assigned a value of 2, and human resource will be assigned a value of 3. So what I can do is I can, once I'll create a factor, I want to see the output of the factor, and then I want to inspect the structure. So let me copy this statement and put it underneath, and let me create the console. And what I'll do is I'll quickly create a factor, and then I'll execute this line of code to see that I've still got the same factor with the same elements, design, production, production. But now we can see that we have three categories: production, design, and human resource. And if I want to go further and see the structure of this factor, what we can see is that we have three categories: production and design, and production has the value 2, whereas design has the value 1. So that's kind of okay, sorry. So the first two elements are design. That's why it is denoting the design value as 2, whereas production, there are two values production later on, so it is saying that these are 1.